Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the first episode of Thepodcuts. Today in this podcast episode, I'm joined by one of my close friend and a famous podcast producer from New York City, Mr. Sergio Nelaton. Sergio is a full-time podcast producer based out of New York City, currently working with Crosstalk Podcasts, helping them out to build their podcast from scratch. A show that explores powerful stories around recovery and personal growth. Today in this episode, Sergio walks us through his process of how he built his podcast from scratch, the exact tools and systems he uses for his podcast production, and his honest advice for someone who is looking to start their podcast journey in 2025. Whether you are just thinking about starting your first show or already have few episodes on the list, this episode is going to be a goldmine for you. I'm your host Amey. I welcome you to the first episode of the podcast. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome to the first episode of the Thepodcuts. Today I'm here with one of my close friend and the famous podcast producer from New York City, Mr. Sergio Nelaton. Hi Sergio, how are you?
I'm good, my brother. I'm good. You make me feel extra special, the famous podcast producer from New York City. I'm doing well, man. I'm excited for this episode. There's going to be a lot of value and, kind of perspective on what it's like to run a podcast, a successful podcast, grow a podcast from start to finish, and maybe, some tips and tricks along the way. So, I'm excited for this channel, everything we're going to do, the guests we're going to have on, and all the amazing value we're going to drop in this channel.
100%. 100%. Good to be here, man. It's been like so long since we know each other, and we have been planning this episode for the last 3 months, I guess. Like here and there, like planning. Then again, the plan got dropped 2-3 times. We were supposed to shoot this episode, I guess last week, but you were supposed to travel to LA for some podcast episode shooting for your crosstalk. The plan got dropped again, and here we are today on the 18th April, Friday morning time for Sergio and evening time for me.
It's 8:19
Good to
a.m.
know, good to know, man. So Sergio is based out of New York City. He's a podcast producer with over 5 years of experience, and he's currently working with Crosstalk Podcasts. Crosstalk Podcast is one of the growing YouTube channel, and they are focused on addiction recovery content. So Sergio, my first question: how did you get into podcasting, and what inspired you to start the podcasting?
So I met someone at an addiction treatment kind of event. He was speaking to an audience of lawyers who were struggling with addiction, and what he said really impacted me. So after the event, went up to him and spoke with him, and just appreciated him for his work and what he shared. And I asked him, are you on any kind of talk shows, or do you have any kind of, you know, do you do any kind of speaking anywhere else? And he basically, outside of that event, no. And I said, have you ever done a podcast, or you should do a podcast? He said, why not? And from there, I kind of, just said, all right, well, let's do it. He said, why not? And it's been a little over 2 years, and we've been figuring it out since. And we've had over 120 guests at this point, probably a lot more than that. We drop episodes every Thursday at 2 p.m. and we publish reels almost daily. We've been doing that for a little over 2 years.
Good to know that. Like, so basically, you shoot your episodes in New York City and Florida as well, right?
We shoot in New York City, Florida, LA, but it really started from just holding a phone and having a
Okay.
little mic. When we started, it was a very simple setup. There weren't even lights, I think. There might have been one light, and we just had 2 chairs. Over time, we've added more better gear, so better microphones, better cameras, like an FX30 camera and a Shure mic with much better lighting and key lights, and expensive lenses. But it started with the phone, and it's evolved
Nice.
over time.
Nice. So, How did you connect with Corey? Corey is a host of the Crosstalk podcast, right? So how did you connect with him, and how did you reach out to him? Like, I want to be the podcast producer of your
Well,
Crosstalk
no. So
and want
he,
to grow
so
your
I,
channel.
yeah, I should have made it clear. He was the guy, the lawyer. So he was the guy I went up to and spoke to, who I said, you should start a podcast. That was Corey.
Oh,
So
okay.
Corey is the guy who spoke, and he's now one of the co-hosts of the podcast that I produce.
Nice. Nice. The
Yeah,
podcasts.
how did you get into podcasting, and what inspired you to start?
For me, it was a roller coaster ride. So I started working as a video editor. I was working at one of the growing agency from United States, Test Edits, and I was working as a YouTube video editor. Then later I shifted that company and started working as a solo freelancer. And one day, one day while searching on Upwork, I got in touch with one of the podcast creator from LA, and I reached out to him offering my services, like I can help you out with video editing, podcast editing, and that's how I started my journey as a podcast video editor. Later on, I found out that I got connected with two more podcast creators and started helping them out with podcast creation, podcast editing, and reels creation. So I was like, this is something new in the industry apart from just talking head videos. Podcast industry started to grow back in 2022, I guess. So I was like, I want to put more efforts in this industry. I want to be niche focused. So I chose my niche as podcast and started putting more work together. And one day while I was sitting in Bangalore in my office, I had a thought like, why don't I have an app? Why don't I have a website where I have a bunch of works and a professional portfolio? So I was like, let's build a website. Let's have a proper portfolio. So I started thinking about which domain should I go with. So I was searching for podcuts.com, but I couldn't get podcuts.com. So luckily I got thepodcuts.com. So that's how I started back in 2023 in Bangalore. I started the podcasts, and here we are
What do
helping
you?
podcast creators grow organically.
That's sweet. So what do you when you're getting into the podcast kind of space? Um, is there anything in particular that kind of stood out to you that you really enjoyed about editing podcast episodes and
Yeah,
producing
yeah,
podcasts?
yeah. So when you work with podcast creators, you get a bunch of variety to work with. Okay, because let's say you are a podcast producer and you are inviting multiple guests on your show. Let's say you are working with 4 guests a month. You get to hear different stories each time. You get to experience a whole new experience every time, and the value you get out of those episodes, that's really inspiring to know. Okay, let's take an example. If you're watching any video of any podcast, let's take a diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett. He's inviting, let's say he's inviting Chris Williamson, he's inviting Jordan Peterson, he's inviting Alex Hermosi. If he keep repeating the same guest again and again, we won't be interested in watching those episodes because we already have seen those content again and again. But if he's inviting multiple guests, the variety of content gets published every week. So it's like getting new experiences throughout the podcast. I was like interested in listening to more raw, authentic, original stories from the creators, and I got more into storytelling because that was something new for me apart from just talking head videos. And podcast industry has grown so much that it's coming to the point that people putting more efforts in podcast rather than talking head videos nowadays. So this is like new experience, new story every time. So I got interested.
Why do you think people are putting more effort into podcasting instead of talking head videos nowadays?
It has it has become more easy for people because let's say if you have a script, it takes so much time to read that script and shoot that episode, and you need separate team for shooting, recording, and then scripting the episodes. and editing the episodes, having motion graphic stuff, having those elements, everything, like it's bit complicated for talking head videos. Instead, for podcast, you just need to invite some guest, set up your camera, that, like what we are doing right now. So it has become more easy. And for podcast episodes, you don't need to have a proper script. You can have some bullet points and you're ready to go. So I think compared to the talking head videos, podcast episodes or podcasting has become a little bit of easy task. Okay, so as you're shooting your episodes both like New York City, then LA, and in Florida, you have to travel with multiple equipments and your camera gear, lighting setup. So can you walk us through your current podcast production workflow, and like what tools, softwares do you use for producing your episodes, and what camera gear you use?
So, current podcast production workflow. Tools that I use, the setup looks like two FX30 cameras, one on the host, one on the guest, and a third with a wide angle lens showing both host and guest. We have Shure MV7 mics for each person, and we're using a Scarlett audio interface for the mics, and we plug that straight into the MacBook Pro, and I'm using GarageBand to record all the audio, which is free, GarageBand. We have what is this? Man, I don't know the brand of
Aperture,
the light, but it's a Godox, I think Godox light.
Godox, Godox SL60.
I think so. It's
Okay.
so we have that, and we have like maybe three of these big lights, one on the guest, one on the host, and now there's a third, second host. So there's three people in the interviews now. So we have one on each person, and then we have typically like a background key light, which you're seeing here. That just causes it
Mm-hmm.
just provides a little bit of separation from the subject in the background. Um, and as far as SD cards, we're using a SanDisk with a minimum of 128 gigabytes, typically 256 gigabytes, just because, sometimes we're knocking out like uh, 11 episodes in 3 days. So it's a lot of filming and not a lot of time to upload, so you have to make sure you have enough space. We've probably got like a ton of them at this point. As far as softwares go, and we're also using headphones to connect to the audio interface and hear all the different audio, just to make sure that everything's in tune. As far as software goes, I'm not going to remember all of them, but we're doing Canva for graphic designing, and we're a nonprofit, so Canva offers it's free for nonprofits. So we're using Canva for all of our graphic designing. We're using Premiere Pro for our editing. We're using RSS to actually upload the audio to RSS and distribute to like 50 plus audio platforms, podcast platforms basically. We're uploading to YouTube, so we utilize YouTube Studio for our long form video episodes. We've got we use this site called 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀. 𝗪𝗪𝗀 is kind of a widgets that you can insert into your website, and we're hosting our website on Squarespace. So we upload all of our episodes, our blog posts, and content there.
Okay, Sergio, so tell me about one thing. So you have been in this industry for the past 2 to 3 years. You're working professionally right now, but when you started as a beginner podcast creator or beginner podcast producer, you might have made a lot of mistakes. So my question is like, what's one common mistake you see beginner podcasters make when they produce their shows or they start their podcasting journey? So what is the one mistake or multiple mistakes you see in the beginner podcasters?
I would say beginning mistakes had to do more with the technical setup. So, and the audio. So in the beginning, I used this Rode Wireless Go 2 microphone, and what I would do is I would clip it on too close to the neck, So when the guest was turning their head and speaking, the mic would be touching the skin and it would muffle. So the entire
Oh, okay.
episode would just be like, and you wouldn't hear anything.
Wobbling.
So, that's happened a handful of times, and it was the worst thing in the world because you sit down for an hour, 2 hours, record content, and you can't even hear the audio. That's like the worst
Yeah.
freaking situation. So what we did was we clipped it lower, or like on a pocket somewhere, or on the shirt, and make sure nothing was touching it. But honestly, that's why we moved to Shure mics
Yeah.
because it was
So
just
having a handy mic over here on your table, that's a really good way to go when you're starting your podcasts.
I think, the more, if you're gonna hire someone to produce your podcast, they should have a basic understanding of how to manipulate lighting and uh, how to express the how to convey the message of your podcast through the camera angle and lighting, because it's not just about putting a camera in front of you and click and record. But if you're going to start, do that. Just put a camera in front of you and click record. It's about what is the message you are trying to convey, and how can we really help the audience feel that visually through the camera angle and lighting. And you see this in movies all the time, but most people don't really think about it with podcasting. It's more of a second thought, but the camera angles and the lighting do make a difference in the experience. So I agree with you. I think it's something that, if you're going to hire someone to do that, make sure that they understand how to manipulate lighting and how to get eye-catching camera angles.
Yeah, good to know about your stuff and good to know about what your thoughts are on the equipments and gears. So my question for you is like, who is your biggest inspiration in the YouTube podcasting world? Who do you look up to when you feel low or you want to get some kind of inspiration? Who is that guy you look up to?
Well, I won't say there's one guy, but there is someone that I've been studying for, or two people I've been studying for over 3 years at this point, maybe 4 years. And when I say studying, I mean looking at their episodes, the way they do their thumbnails, the way they do their titles, their descriptions, what times of the day that they publish, and how often they publish, and how are they creating buzz before the episode drops on social media? How are they pushing their content as soon as it drops? And what kind of promotions are they doing after it drops? How are they designing their graphics and everything? I mean, there are two people who have really been like, I've written down, taken notes, I've tracked, for a couple of months. And those two are Full Send Podcast and the 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀 podcast. So
Oh,
Full
Huberman.
Send Podcast, I really took a lot of inspiration from the beginning when it came to the thumbnail design and the titles. And I would go as far as even writing down the two types of, they had three types of words in their titles. You know, they had words like the, and, because, if, at, and I would see on average how many of those words that they would use in the title, and I would see how many of the other buzzwords that they would use, and how often they would use a guest's name in the title. So the buzzwords were typically capitalized, and the others were lowercase. The names were also capitalized. Point being is that I studied them like crazy, and I took inspiration. 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 podcast, I took inspiration from their website and how they built that out, and have just been studying how they put out their content. And I'm always looking at podcasts all the time, like different podcasts, up and coming, famous podcasts. And I've kind of gotten to a point where I know what kind of everyone's doing, and now I want to be able to take the best parts from each one and make it our own.
Good to know, man. So coming back to this point, like I noticed few things. You mentioned Huberman Lab podcast is the someone who you look up to, and I remember like few months back you reached out to me that Huberman Lab podcast team reached out to you for some kind of works, and they were ready to work with you with your agency for producing the content. So how did that come along, and how did the thing happen? How do you describe that story?
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. Like just stuff happens, and you're just like in the right place at the right time, and it just manifested into itself, and I'm just like, yeah, man. It just happened. It just, I don't know, I don't know, you know. Yeah. I hope that was a good answer.
Yeah.
No, no, no. So I saw a job post hiring from 𝗪𝗁𝗶𝗀𝗀 Media, is what their media company is called,
The comedy.
and I applied, and I probably overkilled the application. Like I created a description on why I believed I was a good fit. I created a resume with some pictures of myself and behind the scenes of producing a podcast and running a team. And I even created I believe a 1 minute video, maybe less than that, 30-second video
Yeah.
introducing myself.
Quick intro. Quick intro video.
Yeah, like saying, hi, my name is X, Y, and Z, and this is what I do. So I overkilled it, and they responded within, I believe, the day. And they sent me a couple of kind of uh, things to do, like graphics to create and videos to edit. This is for their Clips channel. So they have a main podcast channel and a Clips channel. So I had my team work on the clips. I had my team work on the graphics, and again, I overkilled the uploading that stuff. I uploaded, we did a great job with the graphics, the video editing, and we even, I think, did some color grading correction and whatnot. So we uploaded all that footage into on their site where we were applying, and I think I sent in like even titles and descriptions, and for each clip that we created. I also sent in another 1 minute video, like thanking them for the opportunity to do work, and I've been in communication with 𝗪𝗁𝗶𝗀𝗀 Media, through email, and at the time of actually uploading it, I think they had actually found someone to fulfill what their current needs were, but they've since kind of left the door open for future work together. And but I think what really allowed me to even get the foot in was to kind of go above and beyond with the whole process and just exceeding their expectations. So it was pretty cool working with them on that project. And I'm sure one day we're gonna have Andrew Huberman on the podcast. He may not know Crosstalk yet, but he is the largest podcaster in the health and wellness space, and that's the space that we're in. So he's one of our top guys that we want to get on, and I know a few people who've actually either been on this podcast or know someone who has been. So it's only a matter of time.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So we working hard. We're putting efforts. Someday,
Yeah.
at some right time, right place, right work will definitely reach out to us.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, Sergio. So I wanted to ask you one more most asked question in the podcast industry right now. Like so many creators are starting their podcast journey and starting their YouTube channels, but they're not aware of the AI tools. We are currently in 2025, and we must be aware of multiple AI tools in the industry which are helping out so many podcast creators, so many video creators, and those tools are saving a lot of time for a lot of creators. So I want to know, like, what's your take on AI tools in the industry, and are you using any of the AI tools right now for producing your podcast episodes?
Well, my take on AI tools is that if you can use them to minimize the amount of time you spend behind the screen and and give yourself more time to be creative and think of ways to stand out from the rest, then I think leaning into that and really utilizing that is going to be beneficial for growth and honestly sustainability, because there's so much that goes into like editing, there's so much that goes into audio correction, into creating descriptions and titles that unless you have a large team behind you who's doing that, it's nearly impossible to do it properly by yourself. So using AI is going to buy you your time back. And I use ChatGPT. I use some AI tools on Premiere Pro, and let's see what else.
Autopod.
And we use Autopod, but we've kind of been, I think, we use Autopod.
Firefly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Firecut.
I don't know what that is, but we use Autopod that basically like automatically cuts the clips, but there's still an editor who has to go in and cut out the parts that are empty.
Yeah.
That are empty.
So you're currently using ChatGPT and Autopod, both AI tools for producing your episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. These two are like great tools. I would say like ChatGPT definitely helps you out with generating scripts. Then for invitation of the guest, like putting out the email template, everything, and sorting out the things for the post production. Like it can be like description, generating tags, and then uh, the title generation as well for the YouTube. I would like to add one more AI tool, which I use almost every day when I'm working on any client project or it's going to be any video. That is like Adobe Podcast AI. Have you heard about Adobe Podcast AI?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. So basically, what Adobe Podcast AI do is, if you have shitty audio, one of the shittiest audio ever recorded on camera or phone, you just drag and drop the files, whether it can be MP4, MP3, in a matter of seconds, in 10 to 15 seconds, the AI will do the magic and you'll get a clear, crisp studio quality audio. So this is something most new podcast creators might don't know. So I would say like if you're watching this episode on your phone, do try out the podcast studio AI feature by Adobe. That's going to change the game forever. Yeah.
It's a good tip.
Okay, so moving forward, like there is a very important question, or there is a very important thing in this podcasting world, podcasting thing is having a high profile guest or having a guest who can put a lot of value on the table. So I have noticed in your episodes, like you bring really high profile guests on your show, which is Crosstalk Podcasts. So I want to ask you, like, how do you handle reaching out to guest? Like, how does your process look like guest outreach, and how do you handle that process?
Yeah, it's a good question. Aside from our own network, which we do have a pretty strong network of people in our podcast niche, which is addiction recovery. Um, Let me actually, I take that back. So there's two ways we actually find our guests. One is to put ourselves physically in environments and around groups of people are who are in our podcast niche, so addiction recovery. So I'm very involved with care and treatment centers, which is one of the most respected treatment centers in the nation. And there's a lot of people in there who are in recovery, and there's a lot of high profile people as well. So one of the ways we find our guests is not just through friends and family and their friends, but also putting ourselves out in environments where there are people who are the type of guests we want to have on. And over time, over 2 years, I've been able to build certain relationships with people where, you know, them and their friends have been on the podcast, and they're always referring people to come on. So, I mean, we've got like over 120 sources of guests.
So this is a really interesting question. I would like to ask you, like, Have you ever met any of your subscribers outside of your podcast? Like let's say you're bumping into some subscriber, like they're talking about your podcast and they're appreciating your work. Has this happened before anytime?
It's happened at least once. I
Okay.
don't know how many times, not like a ton, but usually a lot of our guests become subscribers. Um, and we haven't had subscribers become guests, but there is one time where at the gym, someone like found out that I was producing a podcast, and like on the way to the gym, he like said, "Hey, like I saw your podcast or something. Like I saw you're doing content. It's really cool stuff." And I got kind of excited. And I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool. Like never been recognized before, but it was cool to have someone appreciate the work that you do, and
Yeah.
just say, hey, I saw your podcast." So that was a pretty cool feeling. It was like making me feel like the podcast was becoming more real. Like this was probably a year ago that it happened.
Yeah. Like that's like wholesome moment for creators like us. Like appreciating our work, someone appreciating our work, and then giving some tips like you're doing this better, you're doing this good. That really makes our day. Yeah, good to know that. So moving on to the next question. This is a really interesting question, and it's going to be somewhat different from the content you're making right now, which is addiction recovery. I'd like to ask you, like, what's one crazy podcast idea you haven't tried but you'd love to try? Like, do you have any idea, like, shooting podcast episode under the tree with this kind of a niche, or near on the beach, or in the snow?
I mean, in the beginning, a crazy podcast idea would be that during an episode, as the guests and the host are asking questions or speaking with each other, that to add like a layer of excitement for the viewer, that someone like me would intermediate and throw a question out to the guest or the host, probably the host for out of respect for the guest, but I would throw a question for the host, and if he didn't answer it right, or if he got the wrong answer on a true or false question, that he would need to, for the rest of the episode, wear an outfit, like a banana outfit, a banana suit.
Oh. Suit. Yeah. Also, Sergio, like you have been producing content for Crosstalk almost for like 3 years now, and about posting more than 150 episodes on YouTube, posting more than 500 plus short form content on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and inviting more than 120 guests. You are currently at 1,800 subscribers, I think 1,800 subscribers. You are close to 2,000, and I hope you will hit that number pretty soon. So I know the process wasn't easy, the progress wasn't easy. That was a really hard job for you as a podcast producer, creating content and publishing it on the media and getting that traction from the audience. So what would you suggest for someone who has been putting a lot of efforts in the content but is not managing to grow their channel, and they're stuck between, let's say, under 500 subscribers or under 1,000 subscribers? What would be your message or the advice you'd like to give to the creators who are struggling to grow their content? Yeah.
So advice for people who are struggling to grow is to just give it a little rub. Give it a little rub.
Okay.
The way to get bigger, if you want to get big, growth, is that you need to really, you got to be consistent over time. At the end of the day, the only way you're going to get the growth you want is if you do it long enough to actually allow yourself to learn what allows a podcast to grow in the first place. And you do it long enough to be able to have an opportunity to have certain guests on who would help you get more reach through your platform, your channel. So consistency and sticking with it for the long run is going to, in my mind, guarantee success as long as you don't stop,
Yeah.
because you're going to learn things along the way. And maybe some practical things is, honestly, find someone who, as soon as you can be in this position to do this, find someone who can help produce your podcast. Because as a host, you need to focus on being a great host, preparing for your guests, and understanding who your viewer is, and creating an enjoyable experience for them. All the other stuff, like the titles, descriptions, filming, lighting, the hashtags, the algorithms and all that stuff, hand that off to someone as soon as you can, so that you can prioritize being a good host. Because people are gonna stay because you're a good host, and the production's gonna allow you to reach more people, because obviously this digital world that we're in, attention is the new currency. Attention is how you grow anything. So you need to learn how to be a good host and how to grab and retain attention through the content. But sticking with it for the long run is going to even give you the opportunity to do that.
100%. Consistency, consistency, and consistency. Keep up with the quality as well, and at some point the graph will suddenly boom. Like you'll reach to the point where you can't even imagine. Just put your work out there and be consistent with your work. Okay, so we are close to wrap up this session, and I'd like to ask you few more questions before we wrap up this episode. So the first question would be, what's one thing you know now that you wish you knew earlier when you started? What do you think that thing could be?
I'm trying to find the words to say this, but there's a lot of value that goes into creating an amazing guest experience, because those guests are going to send you other guests and give you access to people who you may not have had access to otherwise. But there's a lot of value in making the guests feel very welcomed as soon as they come into your home, studio, or in your virtual space. Making them feel comfortable, making them feel heard, showing them that you prepared for them, and giving them space to be themselves. There's a lot of value that goes into that, because I can confidently say right now that the 150 people we've interviewed, most of them, 95% of them, we can either have back on. They will send us guests. There's room for collaborative opportunities to promote the podcast, like sending them merchandise or having them promote the podcast and make a post, which would help us grow. And we're in a stage of doing that right now. But these people, are going to talk about the way that you made them feel, and they're going to remember you for that. So something I wish I knew from the beginning was that there's a lot of value that goes into preparation for the guests and making them feel welcomed and heard.
Makes it feel like things are going to be different when you started, and things are going to be much more different when you get to some point. And it's always the journey, how you go through the journey, and it's not about when you start and where you reach. It's about the journey and how you enjoy it, right?
Absolutely.
We are close to second last question of our today's talk, and I'd like to ask you, like, most people say YouTube has given them a lot of opportunity, a lot of freedom, a lot of fame. So the definition is different for everyone. Okay. I would like to ask you, you have been in this industry for the past 2-3 years. What things podcasting has given you till now? What do you think, what you got out of podcasting, and
Yeah.
why you are pursuing it right now?
It's a
Yeah.
great question. That's a great question. There's a couple of things podcasting has given me. One, cheesy, but purpose. And purpose because I have discovered this world of addiction recovery, and learned, I've come to understand the the importance of the message of addiction recovery and the importance of taking care of yourself, and that's translated to me having better relationships in my life, me surrounding myself with like-minded people who are driven, with people who are healthy and balanced, and with just feeling good on a day-to-day basis. It's giving me a lot of opportunities to meet people who I've watched online, kind of growing up, and even begin conversations with people who are very influential on social media because they see our platform, they see the content we're doing. I send them the trailer, they get excited, and it opens up many doors for people like Patrick Bet David is in recovery, and there's a mutual kind of connection that I have with him, and I haven't spoken directly with him, but he's someone that I would like to get on the podcast. 𝗪𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗀 podcast, that interaction wouldn't have been possible really without us, having this experience in podcasting. And he's the biggest podcaster in the health and wellness space.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, I know a couple of people who've been on Joe Rogan and who have been on our podcast, and who we're going to be hosting a live Crosstalk event later this year where we're going to have some sober comics doing stand-up comedy on stage for a Crosstalk live event. One of them is 𝗪𝗀𝗯𝘀𝗶𝗁𝗀, who's in recovery from addiction. He's an up-and-coming comic, and he's actually got a really strong following on YouTube. Another one is 𝗪𝗲𝗯𝗀𝗀𝗀. A lot of people might know him for his comedy. He's a comic.
Yeah, I
He's
know.
also in recovery, and he's got a few Netflix specials. And John Mulaney, who's also in recovery, he's got a lot of Netflix specials, and he's very active and he's very well known. He politely declined just because he's so busy. We recently got a not yet for a Netflix special, so that was pretty cool. They basically said, you're not big enough yet. Give it some more time. Keep crushing the content. It's great content, but let's get you guys a little bit bigger to explore that. And
Nice.
I just had like a call about 2 weeks ago with Jordan Welch's team on basically our YouTube channel, and they did like a diagnostic, and were giving us some pointers and insight on how they believe we can grow, and obviously there's some room to work together with that stuff. And I mean, there's like dozens and dozens of other people who I've met, people who are famous singers, songwriters, very well known in the U.S., who we've got to have on the podcast. We've had people in this trip in L.A. play music after their episode and sing, to the camera for us. So we're going to put their songs at the end of the episodes, which is so cool. And the fact that we even went to L.A. I mean, we're traveling from New York City. We're filming here. We're traveling to South Florida, which is an hour from Miami, filming there in studio. And we just went to L.A. in a legit podcast, whole like freaking studio room that was so much fun and amazing. And we stayed at a very nice place. And all of that, has been happening, and because of consistently putting out quality content, and putting everything into each episode and providing an amazing guest experience. So it's like that. Honestly, that trip to LA was surreal. And that moment, me and my team were like looking at each other and just thinking like, this is something. Like we're doing something here, and we're not even like huge. We're not even like exploding with views and subscribers. It's building a rich core audience, and over time the growth will come. But yeah, man, so many amazing experiences that I honestly didn't exactly I couldn't see when I started. It's so cool.
Things have changed. Like social media has really changed the lives of so many people. I could see like these things were not possible a few years ago. Like let's say in 2015 or 2010, this was not possible. You have to work from office, you have to travel every day, but now it has become so much easy for so many people just putting out content, getting that kind of value out of it, and putting more quality of work, and chasing the dreams and experiencing the premium lifestyle you get. So yeah, this is something so many people look up to, and you are one of them that experiencing this kind of experience, and good to know that you are living your dream life.
It's a lot of fun. It's, dream life. It's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that because I'm very grateful for it, but I never
Yeah.
dreamed that I would be doing that. I never even desired that. Um, I think what I desired was just connection and feeling like I have value as an individual, and that, you
Yeah.
know, people would want me and need me. And with the podcast, people want me and need me, and I feel like I have a community of people. So whether it was podcasting or maybe something slightly different, the feeling might be the same of just feeling good.
Yeah.
But right now it's podcasting.
Okay, here we are with the last question of the day, and we are ready to wrap up this episode. So before we wrap up the episode, I would like to ask you the final question of the day. That is, where do you see video podcasting world in the next 5 years? What do you see YouTube podcast has for young creators, new creators, and what do you think how it's going to be in the next 5 years?
It's gonna crumble. I mean, if you're not prepared, if you don't know what you're doing, you're it's gonna be hard to keep up, and
Okay.
it's only becoming more competitive. There's only there's new podcasts being created every single day, and with all the noise that is around us, we around podcasting, you have to know how to really stand out from the rest.
Yeah.
So grabbing attention, retaining attention, and having clear calls to action is going to separate you from the rest. If you don't know how to, if you can't pivot in the podcasting world, if you can't adjust to YouTube's latest algorithm or Instagram's latest algorithm, you're going to fall behind. I mean, don't get into podcasting. If you're someone who doesn't value other people's time and prepares for your guests, knows how to understand how viewers engage with content, and not willing to find the right people to help you grow, don't start a podcast. If you're looking for monetization, you're looking to actually grow and do, go travel places and shoot, but you're not willing to put in the work to really educate yourself on what's working and find talented people, don't start a podcast. Don't do it. If you're looking
That's
for
hot
actual
stuff.
growth, looking for actual growth, monetization, and living a life beyond your wildest dreams, don't start a
Yeah.
podcast if you're not willing to do that
Yeah.
other stuff. I hope that's juicy.
But I would say like it's not going to be late. We are just getting started 2025. So I would say like start your journey, start your podcast, and put out the content. You don't know when your video will get viral. You'll get success anytime soon. So it's not late, and it's not early as well. You are at the right time. uh, Start your journey as soon as possible and put out the content. And we are here like we are going to put a lot of value on this channel. We are going to put a lot of content on this channel. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are going to be a variety of guests on our show, variety of podcast creators we are going to invite on our show, and you're going to get a lot of value out of this podcast, whether you're just starting out or whether you are intermediate podcaster or whether you are someone professional like Alex Hermosi. uh, I'm sure you will learn something from this podcast. Um, that's it from me, from Sergio, and it was really great experience talking with someone who I know for last 2 years and working with him for a lot of time. It's good to know his stuff and the work he's putting out there in his podcasting journey. It's really great, Sergio, that you joined today for this episode, and thank you so much for having here on this episode. It was really great experience, and I'm hoping that people who are watching this episode, they'll definitely get some value out of this episode.
I'm looking forward to crushing more episodes together with some very interesting guests.
Yes.
And
Thanks so
remember,
much for watching this episode.
don't
Yeah.
don't start a podcast.
Don't start a podcast if you don't have a vision. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching till here, and see you in the next episode. Bye.
Peace.